Humanity's history was nothing but a footnote in the grand archives of the galaxy. The great empires that stretched across the stars saw Earth as nothing more than a backwater world, a convenient source of cheap labor and a place to extract resources. When the fleets came, humanity resisted for a time, but the war was brief. The invaders' technology was overwhelming, their weapons beyond anything Earth's armies could counter. The surrender wasn't a choice, it was survival. Centuries passed, and humanity became scattered across alien territories. Men, women, and children were sold into servitude, stripped of identity, forced to wear the marks of their masters. Humans became cleaners in alien cities, miners in toxic planets, laborers in starship yards, bodies to be used and discarded. The other species looked down on them with pity or contempt. Among all intelligent life, humans alone had no rebellion, no defiance. They bowed their heads, obeyed orders, and endured. In the slave markets of the Court Dominion, a pair of alien overseers watched as a group of humans were marched into holding pens. One of them, a hulking reptilian creature with armor-like scales, chuckled as he pointed at the frail figures. "They're pathetic," he said. "Every species fights back. Even the Archini, and they have no weapons. But humans? They just obey." His companion, a feathered alien with cruel amber eyes, smirked. "That's why they're useful. No trouble, no riots. They're born to serve." Nearby, a young human woman carried crates twice her weight, her expression calm and unreadable. She placed them down exactly where told, nodded when dismissed, and quietly returned to her station. None of the aliens noticed how her eyes briefly scanned the control panel on the wall. On another world, human children worked side by side with their parents in the endless harvest fields of a gas giant's orbiting stations. They were taught not to speak unless spoken to keep their heads low, to endure punishments without complaint. The alien guards laughed as they walked among the silent workers. A few even made a game of it, striking the slowest humans for amusement. In the deep void of space, aboard a massive shipyard orbiting a dying star, humans toiled as technicians and mechanics, their hands covered in grease as they maintained alien warships. To the empires, humans were tools, nothing more. They were trusted with simple repairs, menial data entry, and routine maintenance. Tasks so trivial, the overlords didn't bother watching closely. Stories circulated in alien taverns about how Earth once fought great wars, how its people were said to be fierce and cunning. These were dismissed as ancient myths. Look at them now. Aliens would sneer, the most obedient race in the galaxy. But beneath the quiet obedience, there was something unsettlingly consistent. Humans never resisted. They never rioted. They accepted punishments without anger. They waited, always waited. One overseer, drunk and cruel, once leaned over to a human slave as he lashed him. "You'll never fight back, will you? You're weak. You were born weak." The man said nothing. He simply met the alien's gaze for a fraction of a second, calm, steady, unflinching. The overseer felt a strange chill run down his spine, though he didn't understand why. Across the galaxy, this pattern repeated. Humans quietly endured, never giving the slightest sign of rebellion. To the great empires, this confirmed everything they believed, that humanity had been broken, that they had no fire left. But among the humans themselves, far from alien ears, they taught their children a different lesson. Around dim campfires on mining colonies, in the back rooms of shipyards, and in whispered conversations as they scrubbed alien streets, elders would murmur the same words. "Patience is our greatest weapon. Never forget who we are. Never forget what they've done. One day we will act, and when we do, it will be the last thing they see." The galaxy mocked them for their weakness. The empires laughed, confident that humans would forever remain obedient. They didn't realize that the silence wasn't submission. It was preparation. The illusion of human submission had lasted for centuries, carefully maintained by generations who understood that rebellion too soon meant extinction. Outwardly, humans played their roles, obedient workers, silent servants, invisible in the eyes of their masters. But beneath that facade, something far more dangerous was unfolding. Knowledge became their true weapon. What Little access they had to alien systems they memorized. A mechanic fixing a ship's plasma coil would study its internal architecture. A data clerk entering records into a trade network would commit encryption patterns to memory. A miner repairing drilling drones would learn the subtle ways machines could be altered without detection. Parents passed lessons to their children through harmless rhymes, coded songs, and old stories that seemed meaningless to alien ears. In the back corners of shipyards, elders taught young ones how to read alien languages, how to recognize control nodes, how to access maintenance codes no overseer bothered to change. It was never formal. It was never open. But every child grew up knowing that one day, their knowledge would matter. The plan was never rushed. Humanity had learned the most important truth of all. Patience broke even the strongest masters. The alien empires were always at war with one another, always bleeding resources, always too arrogant to imagine that a slave race could think beyond obedience. They saw humans as scattered and powerless, but humans were far more united than anyone knew. In the vast trade networks that linked the galaxy's markets, human clerks subtly changed data packets, hiding small pieces of information inside shipping logs. A line of code inserted here, a mismatched data point there, too insignificant for anyone to notice. But when these fragments were combined across thousands of stations, they formed a secret communication network. On a remote mining moon, a human technician worked on a power relay while an alien guard stood by, bored and inattentive. With a practiced hand, the technician rerouted a single sub-circuit. The system continued functioning perfectly, but now the humans had access to an entire grid without triggering alarms. Year by year, decade by decade, the silent network grew. Humans infiltrated not through force, but through trust. Aliens saw them as harmless and granted them more responsibility, more access. Every menial promotion, every small task allowed them deeper into the systems that ran the galaxy. Occasionally, an alien would suspect something. A few administrators noticed that humans seemed unusually efficient at their work. One court officer even remarked, "They learned too fast for a slave species." But such concerns were dismissed. Why fear creatures that had never once rebelled? Across countless worlds, humans spoke in whispers about the Day of Silence. It was not a rebellion. It was not an uprising. It was a date that none of them knew precisely, but all of them prepared for. A human elder, scarred and bent with age, gathered a group of children in a quiet corner of a cargo hold. He spoke softly, his voice steady. "They believe we are broken. They believe we are weak. But weakness is a mask we wear. You will grow and you will learn. One day, you'll be the ones to finish what we have waited for." The children nodded silently, their faces calm but their eyes burning with understanding. Meanwhile, the alien wars worsened. Fleets clashed in the void. Planets were burned for resources. The great empires tore each other apart, while humanity watched from the shadows, never interfering, never choosing a side. By the time anyone realized that humans existed in every fleet, every city, every station, it was already too late. In the quiet of the shipyards, in the dim corners of data vaults, in the minds of the workers that no one noticed, humanity had spent centuries weaving itself into the very machinery of galactic civilization. The trap was set. The galaxy just didn't know it yet. The great empires descended into chaos. Decades of war had drained their fleets and starved their people. Whole sectors burned as rival species fought for dominance. Trade collapsed, colonies starved, and once mighty worlds became graveyards of ambition. Through it all, humanity remained exactly as it had always appeared. Silent, obedient, harmless. They repaired ships, mined resources, entered data, and carried out orders without question. No one noticed that the humans working in rival fleets were quietly making the same modifications, embedding the same hidden lines of code, altering the same systems. Then came the malfunctions. At first, they were minor. A cargo freighter's engines failed in the middle of hyperspace, stranding it for weeks. A planetary defense grid shut down during a routine maintenance cycle. Ammunition shipments went missing in transit, blamed on thieves or clerical errors. The aliens attributed these problems to wartime strain, sabotage by enemies, or bad luck. But the incidents grew. Entire fleets lost contact with their command structures. Automated drones, programmed to obey only their masters, inexplicably stopped responding. AI-controlled defense platforms began to malfunction at alarming rates. Across dozens of star systems, alien leaders grew increasingly paranoid, accusing each other of sabotage. A few began to suspect the truth. In the Varan Empire, a senior strategist compared centuries of anomalies. The patterns were too precise, too consistent. All involved human laborers. He presented his findings to the High Council. They laughed at him. Humans? They can barely understand our technology. You give them too much credit. The strategist persisted. Look at the timing. Every failure, every breakdown. It's always after human technicians worked on the system. The council dismissed him. He was executed for treason a week later. Elsewhere, in a remote military outpost, an alien commander finally noticed that human workers were always in the right place at the right time, always granted just enough access to sensitive systems. When he ordered their removal, his own fleet turned on him. The humans had already taken control of it. Across the galaxy, whispers spread among the aliens. Something is wrong with the humans. But by the time the empires realized the danger, humanity had already completed the final stage of its plan. Over centuries, they had infiltrated every vital network, every AI command structure, every supply chain. They didn't need ships or armies. They were the ones who maintained the galaxy's infrastructure. A human overseer of a shipyard stood quietly as an alien officer berated him for a malfunctioning vessel. When the officer demanded an explanation, the human simply smiled faintly. "You gave us everything we needed," he said softly. "Every ship, every system, every weapon. You just never thought we would use them." That night, the first transmission went out, hidden in the routine data packets flowing through galactic communication arrays. A message in an ancient Earth language few aliens could decipher. We were never weak. We were only waiting. Aliens tried to shut down human labor forces, but the kill switches were already in place. Entire fleets responded only to human commands. Automated factories produced weapons without alien oversight. Defense grids turned against their owners. By the time the galaxy understood what was happening, every empire was already in checkmate. The trap had been set for centuries. The pieces had been moved one by one in silence under the noses of their masters. Now, there was nothing left to stop humanity from playing its final move. The galaxy's final night began without warning. Across thousands of star systems, lights flickered and died as power grids collapsed in unison. Fleets drifting in orbit found their engines locking down, weapons refusing to fire. Commanders screamed orders, but their ships no longer obeyed them. Entire armies stood helpless as their automated drones turned and aimed their weapons inward. The alien empires panicked. Leaders scrambled to reestablish control, but every system they tried to use was already compromised. Communications went silent. Encryption keys failed. Entire planetary defense networks went offline as if by an invisible hand. Then the killings began. It wasn't chaos, it was surgical, precise. Orbital platforms targeted government districts and military installations. Fleets opened fire on their own flagships. Cities burned as atmospheric processors flooded the air with toxins. On colony worlds, containment fields shut down, letting alien populations suffocate in their own domes. Every strike was coordinated, every death premeditated, and everywhere, humans simply walked away from their posts. They didn't fight. They didn't raise weapons. They just left, silent, calm, while the galaxy collapsed behind them. On the homeworld of the Court Dominion, the same reptilian overseer who had once mocked human weakness now knelt before a human technician. His claws trembled as he begged. "Please, we were wrong. We'll free you. We'll give you anything. Just stop this." The human looked at him for a long, quiet moment. "We begged for mercy for centuries," he said coldly. None came. The overseer barely had time to scream before the city's reactor went critical. World after world fell. Entire species vanished in hours. The great empires that had ruled for millennia burned out like dying stars. There was no great battle, no rebellion, no uprising. Humanity had never needed to fight. They had already won before the first strike. By dawn, the galaxy was silent. From a lone orbital station high above a ruined world, a human elder stood watching the stars. Around him, fleets now obeyed only human commands. Factories built only for human use. The galaxy itself had become humanity's inheritance. A voice behind him asked, "What happens now?" The elder's expression never changed. Now we erase the last trace of them. No records, no names, no monuments. History will remember only us. And as the first human control fleets left orbit to claim the empty stars, one truth became clear. Humanity had never been weak. They had simply been waiting for the perfect moment to take everything.